Okay, pressure's on now, the recording's on. So I was just going to talk for a couple minutes first, and then take lots of questions if you have them, hopefully. Um, it occurred to me that I think last time I was on, I talked about the Buddha's uh, search, for the cause of suffering. And I was thinking about it over the last few days about how much in Buddhism and Zen, we talk about suffering and, killing the ego, and, it's dark, and it looks like a hard slog up a mountain, and all those kinds of things. And I thought, wait a minute, where's the joy here? Where's the joy? Where's the fun? And there is a lot. And I can speak from myself that, I've had some very joyous experiences, and it's been a joy to discover new things about the Dharma and about myself and about others. And it's been a joy to meet all the members of the Sangha, and even over Zoom, or back in the day when we were all kind of hanging out together in person. And, I just wanted to say that it should be, there's going to be tough times. There's hard things to do. There's discipline. There's, trying to make yourself sit every day. Especially during the times when you're kind of not feeling like it. But, look for the joy too. I mean, it's actually there's many days now when I go to meditate when I'm like, oh, I can't wait to meditate, because like everything else in my life is like so busy, or, things are going on, and it's just like, oh, this would be great to take 20 or 30 minutes and just sit. And, it's like a wide awake nap, it's nice, and I like the joy of it. And but anyway, and it made me recall what I think is a very delightful koan, and I will tell you the koan, and then I'm just going to leave it there, and you can think about it during the talk. Maybe we'll come back to it later. Maybe we'll just leave it hanging. But this is a koan that gave me a great deal of joy when I kind of saw it. And it's koans are oftentimes a mondo, which is a short Zen conversation, typically between the master and the student, sometimes between two students, sometimes between two masters. But this particular one, the monk goes to the master and he says, "Master, what is enlightenment? What is enlightenment like?" And of course, that question is asked in a lot of different forms and a lot of different koans. And the master looked at him and he said, "It's like a donkey looking down a well." And the monk said, "I don't understand." And the master said, "The well sees the donkey too." Okay, I'll just let that hang for a while. All right, any questions about anything? How's everybody doing? Kathy, go ahead. Just unmute and
Yeah, so since you brought up suffering, I too have times where just sitting is a real pleasant getaway, but during times when I am having a really hard time, it just seems like as I sit, it gets heavier and heavier, and I can't, it's like I can't find my way out. I get a little bit anxious, and at least that's not as much as it used to be. There's a lot more pleasant sits, but I really don't know how to handle that. If I need to take a break, I mean, like a 5 or 10 minute break and come back, or I'm not sure what to do.
Well, typically when things come up in our meditation, then that's a signal to go right at them.
Yeah, that's what I was afraid you were gonna say. Okay.
But tell me, but see, so the question might be for you in meditation, when you feel it getting heavier, is to say, maybe, who is it that's feeling the weight? Or what is feeling the weight? Or maybe, what is the weight exactly?
Okay.
Okay, so
Mhm.
just go right at it,
Okay.
and don't get up till you figure it out. No, I'm kidding.
All right, that helps. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. By the way, Kathy, did you know you have a Roshi like living within, I think, 50 or 100 yards of you?
No,
Let me introduce you to Conchi Roshi over in the corner there, Mark Esterman.
no kidding. Here in Virgin?
Yeah, you're on L Street and I'm on N
Oh,
Street.
we moved back in
Oh,
March, but I
oh,
guess we were.
well,
Yeah. My husband and I, we just bought a little piece of property 16 miles outside of the entrance of Zion.
oh,
And so we're doing a little Airbnb and just
Ah,
let things unfold. Yeah.
Mark,
well, come and visit sometime then. We're not moving in the near
That's
future.
amazing. Wow.
yeah,
It's a wonderful neighborhood.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, Kathy, yeah, thanks for your question. And yeah, just, and the other thing that might come up, when you're asking that question, who's feeling the weight, or what is it that's feeling the weight? You may find some resistance to asking that question even. So then you have to tackle that and say, what's my resistance? So I think, like Paul mentioned last time we were together, it's about plumbing the depths, right? And it's about facing things head on. And there's no safer space to do that than when you're sitting, right? You're already comfortable somewhere, you're sitting down, you've cleared that time and space to do this kind of thing, which is partly what makes it more intense, because you have no other distractions,
Hmm. Okay.
right? So
Sure.
just, I mean, be gentle with yourself too, but go ahead and pursue that question.
Okay.
Okay, and you may not get an answer right away, but just keep at it.
Sounds good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Anybody else? Paul, you look like a donkey that's been looking down a well for a while.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah. Yeah. Let me just say
Yeah,
about that
about the
koan.
well and the donkey.
Hope you're echoing
How's that? Is
better.
it any better?
Yeah. By the way, in koans, when they refer to donkeys, they're, it's the master kind of gently ribbing the monk in a way, by calling him a donkey. Sometimes the imagery is kind of funny too. That's part of the joy. Anyway, Paul, how are you doing? Got any questions?
Well, it in some cases, it seems to me that being the donkey is a desirable state of not knowing, of being stupid. And kind of on an even par with the well itself. I've had an odd experience lately of the way I've been perceiving events in my life. It seems that part of me is remembering them. It feels like a memory instead of happening at once and at the same time, happening at the same time. And Belinda made the observation that, well, your witness is at work. And when you talk about the donkey and the well, I'm not sure which one is the witness. So I'll have to ponder that for a while.
Yeah, and maybe there's no witness actually.
Kind of feels that way.
Because what is the witness?
That's kind of an essential question, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. You're going to force me to tell more stories now. Mark, maybe you can help me with this one real quick. Okay, you know the famous Dogen, to study the Buddha way is to study the self. Study the self is to forget the self. Forget the self is to
Be awakened by the 10,000 dharmas.
be awakened by the 10,000 dharmas. And and then it goes on to say, when the myriad things come forth and see, or when you put yourself forward and see the myriad things, maybe I'm getting too complicated here.
That is the line that everybody forgets, and I am one of those who have forgotten.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll look it up for you while you're talking about
Okay.
something else.
Because it's directly related to this donkey story.
Yeah, I was going to invite people. I don't like to chime in here, and
Please do.
I will step aside. But if anybody understood that very cryptic pseudo Zen exchange between Paul and Bruce, or didn't understand it, please feel free to chime in and ask what you want to know. Just because it sounds like they know what they're talking about doesn't necessarily mean they do.
That's right. That's for sure. That's for sure.
So don't hesitate to speak up. You can raise your hand by using the participants panel, and really, share what you are questioning, or share what you've experienced, or share what you'd like to hear from Bruce. Most of you probably don't know him except by kind of reputation as the man at the other end of the phone. But he's had an interesting life, and how he came to Zen is interesting. So if you want to know about that, you can ask him too. Belinda, are you waving your hand, or are you trying to adjust your camera?
Okay.
Anyone else, feel free to raise a hand or just open your mic and speak up.
Yeah. Hey, Michael, you're in San Antonio, right?
I'm in Austin.
Oh, Austin. That's right.
Yep.
How's it going?
Good.
Are you enlightened yet?
Well,
What does it even mean, right?
Well, what I can say is that I am celebrating that this process I embarked on to kind of elevate my son's consciousness has panned out well. He's, I think I'd mentioned before, I was working with him on his disability, his writing disability, and I just completely committed to supporting his process. And yesterday I was told that he shows absolutely no indication, no markers for any of the supposed disability that he was sent to the behavior unit for which he was sent. And it's just a fascinating transformation over the last 6 months, since April. So.
And how did you help to make that happen?
Well, this is one of those things where you listen to the whispers. So I took up a process of helping him design these daily habits that took less than about it's just kind of a focusing process where essentially helped him to visualize, to take the to stop worrying about the end goal, which was to be able to write, right? And just worry about the process, just be focused on the process. And what I realized was the mistake being made was that the only thing that schools were talking about was the product. So by just shifting everything to what am I doing? When am I putting my one foot in front of the other, and just keeping it super small, down to the point where I just had him visualizing a letter in his mind. What I told him was, they've sent you into the woods to cut logs with a butter knife, and then they've blamed you that you can't do it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to help you have a saw, and every letter is going to be a tooth, and we're going to sharpen every single one of those. So we just picture every letter in his mind one at a time. And over a couple of months, we didn't even practice writing. Over a couple of months, he just took off. Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah, one letter at a time.
So happy to see it.
Yeah,
You know, that's what we have to do in this practice too, one day at a time. A little bit of meditation every day, or it's like going to the gym. You don't see results for a while, right? You get on there and you start lifting weights, and it's sore and it's hard, and it takes a month or two before you kind of go, oh, wait a minute, I think I'm feeling a little better, a little different. Maybe I can lift a little bit more.
yeah.
It's just
It was
a day.
great things from small. That was the whole practice. Great things from small. Just keep it super small. I mean, there wasn't any one process. The whole idea was that we could do it in 30 seconds or less, and then celebrate that little step that was taken. And that was the thing I say I would share here, which was, even the little step, it's okay to celebrate that little step, like actually to make that go, yes, that was a step in the right direction. We're not there yet, but
Yeah.
I mean, so he has no behavior problem, no social problem, no concentration problem, no peer problem. I mean, absolutely nothing that was claimed about him. I mean, they were trying to give him all kinds of diagnoses, and all the clinical stuff's fallen away. He's just his own person, and it's quite an interesting demonstration.
Congratulations. It's awesome.
Thank you.
Good.
So that's my share.
We sort of stress meditation, and it's very important, but there are other practices too, and so you can mix it up sometimes. Going back to my going to the gym analogy, you don't have to you just lift one weight a certain way all the time. There's lots of different machines you can go to. And in Zen, we have koans, of course, to work on, which can be quite interesting and also frustrating, but fun. Meditation, which, because we have so many distractions sometimes in Western life anyway, is something constantly, to distract us. But, if we can keep with that. But, bowing is actually a very good practice. And I don't know if any of you here just like bowed and bowed and bowed. And I mean like full bows where you go down on the floor and put your head on the floor and then get back up. It's actually quite an amazing practice, because, part of it is just learning how to stay with something and focus, right? And also it's pretty good exercise. Because you go from a standing position, you do this, then you go down on your knees, and you go down on your elbows and put your head down, put your hands up, go back up, bow again, and it seems crazy. Like, why would something like that, why is that even a practice? Why is that something that would get me anywhere? And yet it does, and from my experience, it kind of helps with humility, because you're kind of bowing. You don't have to bow to something, but you could pick something to bow to, like to your own life or to someone else's life, or to the planet, or whatever you want to choose. But mainly just that over and over consistent thing is quite a wonderful practice. And of course, we have chanting too, which is another kind of practice that can be very helpful if you mix them up. you know. Jane, how are you? You have to unmute.
Oh, there. Is that working?
Yeah, it's working great, except now I can't see.
Okay. Yeah, it won't do, it'll only do one or the other. Um, I think it was Tuesday, something that was said really, or maybe the week before, was extremely helpful about, rather than trying to fix or control or change a situation, asking the situation, what are you teaching me? Or I forget exactly. And that, turning that around like that, I'm
Mhm.
finding to be extremely helpful.
I totally agree. Do you have an example where you've done that?
Um, yeah, because, well, I mean, just little things, like if I'm obsessing about the future, or, getting stuck in planning in my head rather than being in the moment.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm avoiding something unpleasant, and then I just ask, what do you want me to know? What are you teaching me now? And I can't remember the specifics, but I do remember getting an answer.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's.
And then the other thing I was going to say is, I started out with the Thich Nhat Hanh, in that world.
Mhm,
And when you were talking about bowing, we did an earth, connecting to the earth practice,
mhm.
where you're paying homage to the ancestors and to the earth, and you get down on your hands and knees, and you express gratitude to the earth, and then you express gratitude to your grandparents, and you just kind of go through a whole line of things, and you get back up, and then you go back down, back and forth, back and forth. So, I mean, what you were saying reminded me of the practice that we did. I don't remember the exact order in which we did those things, but
Mhm.
it was very powerful.
It can be very powerful, and it is practiced in many traditions, actually, including ours. I know when people become senseis, part of the ceremony, they have to. Mark, do you recall? It's like 1,000 bows a day for. I don't know how
Uh,
long.
it was a lot. I think I remember doing like 108 at a time. Uh,
Yeah.
but I'm not even sure how many times in a day, but it's a lot. And the practice is, yeah, I think what you're saying, that if you don't think about what it means and you don't think about what you're accomplishing with it, you discover something different that you didn't anticipate, and that, as Jane is saying, it teaches us something.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
I mean,
Yeah, you don't have to bow to anything in particular. Sometimes it's just to feel your own body making that movement over and over is also very informative. Go ahead, Jane.
well, I'm just going to say, because of my, artificial knee and hip and everything, I probably can't do that practice anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, the walking meditation can do it too.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Walking meditation is very much that same way, because you're taking very slow steps. Your eyes are down. You're staying in that moment. And one of the things, Jane, I liked what you said. Um, People talk a lot about mindfulness, and awareness and that kind of thing. And, mindfulness is partly being mindful of your surroundings and things, but it's also very, very important to be mindful or aware of your inner states, and seeing those when they come up, right when they come up. It's like Kathy was talking about, she has enough mindfulness to like go, wow, something's getting very heavy here. And that's good, because sometimes those kind of things can happen, and you're not even aware of them, and you just get more and more kind of freaked out a little bit. But so all these kind of practices are related in that way. They're a kind of discipline and a kind of training to focus. And of course, one of the paramitas that we talk about all the time, can't remember the actual name for it, but it has to do with discipline. And it's the discipline of just, saying, I'm going to go ahead and do this, I'm going to do these 108 bows, or I'm going to, I have a hard time sitting still, meditating. So I'm going to do bows instead, or I'm going to go back and forth, or I'm going to go ahead and meditate on my schedule, and so that discipline, it takes a while, but slowly samadhi builds up, this state of concentration and focus, and it spills over into the rest of your life. It's not just that you have it right then, it's also, you'll find you have more focus and more awareness and concentration just doing your job, or doing the dishes, or talking to friends. And it's very interesting. And if you just stay with it and stay steady, you'll see the results. Okay, anything else, Jane?
No, thank you.
Thank you so much for bringing that up. Sam, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Hey, before you get started, I just wanted to tell you that I want you to call me.
Okay.
I'm not sure when, but I want to talk on the phone with you for a little bit. I have some ideas, but anyway, go ahead with your question.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I've never bowed or anything like that, but I think it's what you're talking about is kind of prostrations. I've
Yeah.
heard of prostrating before, and it, being a good way to let go of your ego and things like that. And I've never done it before, but it's something to consider. And
Mhm.
for people maybe that have a hard time, I'm wondering about, prostrating, like I don't know if this makes sense, but prostrating my ego to this koan, for instance. Like I find myself imagining standing at the edge of the well like the donkey, just looking down into the well and going duh, or oh, or whatever the donkey does, and just being like, is that what I'm going to do with my practice? Or am I just going to be listening to the echo and kind of be like, wow, what's that? As opposed to taking in the wisdom of other people around me, or being with friends or something, or just being confused. It's like, I don't know, so somehow my ego has to let go. And it might even be me rambling or something. Like, it may not make a lot of sense, but in our world, somehow say, okay, I don't understand. I need to be in the place of not knowing, and just get from my position what I think I am as standing, or whatever it is, get down on the ground and touch my head to the ground, actually, and be like in this state of submission. Then maybe I'm ready for something. I don't know. Is that making sense somehow, or is there any comment you can make on that? Whether it's in relation to the koan you gave or not, but for us who don't quite get it somehow, this prostration thing, maybe it's I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not really formed what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, well, my comment is, dude, go for it. And I could, if you were here, I could kind of show you the Soto Zen school way of doing it, but it's essentially, you're standing straight up, you put your hands together, in a gasho, and you make a kind of a bow with your head and shoulders, and then you kind of go straight down onto your knees, and then go forward, gently until your forehead touches the ground, and then you lift your hands up next to your ears, like you're lifting the Buddha or something over your head, just a little bit. But that's kind of the way we do it. But I would just say, whatever you do, just do it the exact same way every single time. And the reason I say that is because it's not so much what you're doing, it's if you do it exactly the same way every time, it will become a little barometer that'll tell you about yourself every day, because you'll notice the days that you're not doing it exactly the same way, or you'll notice the times you're not doing it exactly the same way. And we in the Soto school, and in our lineage, the way Genpo Roshi trained us, was very much about the forms in the Zendo a lot of the time. Like, you have to step into the Zendo with your left foot, and you have to turn a certain way, and you have to do everything exactly. You have to bow to your cushion and bow to the people across from you who are in the room. and lighting the incense. Everything had a very specific sort of form. And it wasn't because they wanted to be Nazis about that's the perfect form to become enlightened, but it was because if we do it exactly the same way every day, then we notice the subtleties of changes that are happening when we're kind of not doing it quite the same way. Like one of the problems we have in the West is everything is so heavy-handed that we don't appreciate subtleties like we used to. I don't think. And it takes, the thing about having a discipline like that is the little things all of a sudden are noticeable and the subtleties are noticeable. So in your meditation, you'll notice the subtleties of changing of your breathing or your mental state or little things, happening in your body. And you notice the more subtle things like just the sounds outside or those kind of things. And subtlety is a wonderful thing, right? I mean, we get bombarded so much on TV and everywhere else that I want to encourage that whatever you do, try to do it exactly the same. And it might take a while to get the way that you want to do it exactly the same, but once you get there, try to stick with it, okay? And then you'll see your sensitivities, your inner sensitivity to things becomes more finely tuned, and then your appreciation of things becomes more finely tuned. So that's what I have to say about that. Does that help, Sam?
Yeah, that's vastly interesting. And I just want to say I appreciate the way that you're saying it somehow, because I can listen to the words or something, but also the way you're saying it sort of allows for me to sit with it and be like, oh, I get what he's saying. I can sink into that. So something about the way you're doing it, I appreciate it. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for bringing that up.
And I'll be in touch.
Okay. Hi, Ruth.
I always say I'm not going to talk. I can't help it. Can't help myself. It's nice to see you. It's nice to hear you talk about forums, because I got my first introduction to them at Salt Lake, and it was such a scramble for me. I mean, Mark can tell you, I kept forgetting to do this and go out and put my left foot in, and the frustrations of kind of looking up and I found it really moving to do it and to be in the presence of other people who were doing it. And it never would have occurred to me to do it by myself. And then when I learned about, putting your hand up and what we do when we elevate our hands, I mean, it was profound. I can't even begin to tell you why. The other thing I want to say is 37 years ago, I was in Tibet and the border had just opened. So, I mean, Tibet still existed, Lhasa still existed. Now it doesn't. It doesn't exist anymore. It's been destroyed. And we saw and spent quite some time with the pilgrims who had made pilgrimages from all across Tibet to Lhasa, to the Jokhang temple. And maybe I'm misunderstanding them, but I think they did body length prostrations the entire trip.
Right.
Or at least until they got into Lhasa. But so we saw these people prostrate themselves, bowing, and then get up and then move, and they would inch, and they inched their way across this massive land, and the level of devotion and discomfort, because the women had these gowns, I mean, with these long arms, and they put their pots and pans in there, and those were their blankets, and I mean, it was just really quite astonishing. And I wish I could go back there now with the eyes that I have, because for me, it was just kind of like, I was wide-eyed, but I had no cognition of what they were doing. I just was struck by the devotion. So for me, devotion is something I aspire to. And it's like having faith is something I aspire to. It doesn't really matter what I believe in. I don't have to believe in God, but it's the question of faith and the question of devotion. And I got a real respect for that kind of devotion. And I think that Buddhism is a lot about that, or at least I suspect it is without knowing much about it. And maybe it's blind devotion, and I have trouble with blind devotion. But that's what faith is, I guess. Anyway, I just wanted to share that. So it's good to see you, and thanks for listening to my ramblings.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ruth. I remember myself, the first few times I was at Kanzian Zen Center for retreats and feeling like a bull in a china shop. I mean, just so clumsy and so awkward, and it takes a while to get that together, but it is a beautiful thing, and it's beautiful to witness, and it's a beautiful thing to be a part of if you can. When you mentioned the monks doing those full prostrations, some of those people have, they have calluses on their forehead from bowing, and it is devotion. And I think devotion, well, let's try this. Let's everybody do a little big mind here, and I'd like to speak to the voice of devotion. Okay, so you are devotion, right? So just sit with it for a minute and feel, what is devotion in you? How does it feel? What's it like? And then anybody who wants to say, just raise your hand. Monica?
I am disowned, at least in a sense, I think. She thinks of me. And yeah, I'm just kind of this floating thing on the side of her.
How does that feel for you as devotion?
I mean, obviously it doesn't feel good. I would like to be more present. But at the same time, I'm kind of used to it.
But what could you offer her if she owned you?
Maybe some peace of mind. Not questioning everything so much. And just trusting in something bigger.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think she won't let you in?
I think it's her upbringing in the Catholic country, Catholic environment, and kind of rejection of it down the road, as she was exposed more to what religion is and what it means. And there's obviously beautiful side of it, and there's some ugly side of it that was hidden for too long, which kind of created that rejection.
Mm. So her kind of trust was broken, or her faith was broken a little.
I think so.
And so she hasn't allowed you back in because she's afraid you'll glom onto something new that will break her heart again.
Or just that like things haven't been resolved,
Oh.
you know. There was that blind following as a child of religion because that's what you're told to do.
Mm-hmm.
And as you grow older, you become much more aware of things as they are.
And how are they?
They're messy.
They are.
You know, I think I mentioned before, I grew up in Poland, and John Paul II is like the, you can't say anything bad about him. But he, for far too long, ignored the ugly. And others. But
So let me ask, other than religion, does she allow you in for other things to
yeah,
operate?
yeah, it's weird. She has easy time getting devoted to things that require perfection and um, sort of really going deep into something, other things that she's interested in. But I don't know if that's devotion. I think that's just mostly seeking perfection.
So as devotion, even disowned, do you require perfection?
No.
But she does.
I think there's that expectation, if you're going to do something for so long and be so devoted to it, you have to commit yourself um, to the fullest in some way.
As devotion, even disowned, do you feel like if she owned you that you would ever cause her any harm?
I think she's too practical and logical to really own me. Too many questions, too many why. I know, I don't think I would cause her any harm.
But her rational side, skeptical, huh?
Yeah.
What would you like to tell her right now?
That maybe she's missing out on some things that would allow her to be maybe be okay with less control and, you know, having everything kind of planned. Maybe some more peace of mind in some way.
It's always a good thing, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jane?
Well, if anybody, I mean, I've already spoken. Is there anybody else who's got their hand up? Give them an opportunity or?
Uh, you know, you're the one with the hand up, so I'm going to go with you, but don't be shy,
Okay.
folks.
Okay. Well, what I notice is, devotion is full of reverence
Okay,
and appreciation.
just 1 second, Jane. Speak
Okay.
as devotion, as
Okay. Okay. As devotion, I am full of reverence, and it's like everything I experience is sacred in some way. The light, animals, you name it. It just all seems very sacred to me. And so there's a sense of awe and beauty. And yeah, and
devotion. Are you
yeah,
tough?
um, that doesn't seem relevant to me for some reason as devotion.
Are you strong?
I, I think I'm just there. I'm just there.
Are you a
That's
are you a quitter?
no,
No.
no. But it doesn't feel like work or trying or striving. It just feels like the natural way to be.
Even during hard times when it's hard to stay devoted?
Well, that's kind of Jane's problem.
No, it's your problem. Your devotion.
I'm devotion. I'll do, what I have to do, because I'm devotion. But Jane could, is afraid of commitment and, like what Monica was saying. That
Yeah. Yeah. This is our problem, isn't it, as humans sometimes? It's like, we're in a fight with ourselves, right?
yeah, I mean, that's where the struggle comes in. Yeah. I mean, the struggle goes away if you just do it.
But so let me ask you to speak as completely wholly owned, 100% pure devotion.
Well, it just feels like such a natural state of being. It's calm. It's there's no struggle. It's just I want to devote myself to whatever matters, whatever is important, whether it's the practice or my writing or the relationship I'm in. It just feels like the right way to be.
And does Jane agree with you?
Sometimes and sometimes not.
Yeah.
I mean, Jane allows me in some of the time for sure, but not all the time because when something feels, well, it's more habit. It's kind of her habitual way of doing things. She kind of gets stuck and and even though when she allows devotion in and discipline and all the other things, then it doesn't feel stuck. I mean, it doesn't feel like a struggle. So the very thing that she's struggling against is the very thing that can help her.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, of course, we can learn from those things. But in life, we take a lot of vows, in Buddhism, of course, we take vows to, save all sentient beings and to all the different precepts, and if you get married, it's for better or worse, sickness and health, that's so devotion is part of that kind of commitment, is it not?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, it definitely, I mean, as devotion, I definitely make commitments all the time, but they don't feel hard or like I said before, they feel just natural. Jane's the one who puts up a bit of fuss once in a while.
Okay.
But once she gets through the fuss, then she goes, oh, okay. This isn't so hard. I'm making it. She realizes that she's making it harder than she needs to, and it's necessary.
Yeah. So is that when you step in and say, wait, you're devoted to this, you got to do it anyway, even though you're resisting?
Yeah, I mean, like to give you an example, Jane's climbed like 800 mountains, right? And that takes quite a bit of commitment. And I mean, just as one example, as an athlete, you know, she has to commit every single day, every time she stepped out on the arena on the ice, every time she straps on her skis, she's committing. So she knows how to do it.
Yeah,
But
good.
if it's something new, or that her ego is not, like wrapped into, then it's a little harder. I think the ego kind of helps her with the commitment to, you know, the mountaineering and the skiing and 'cause there's enormous satisfaction in that for the ego. Well, and for everything that um, it feels really good to do something hard and succeed at it.
Yeah,
S-
yeah, it
So
does.
yeah,
I want to say
something.
something as a devotion, if I can. Maybe it can contribute here.
Jane, you let Sam do
It's
that?
Yeah, absolutely. I
okay.
would.
Ye-
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it because it's the kind of devotion I feel that as devotion. I'm the thing that kind of brings Sam to sitting practice and to try these new things, especially during this 1 year Big Mind Zen program. And this correct devotion somehow has a whole lot to do with what we're doing here and coming together as friends. And we're on sort of a group exploration. And it's like we're kind of climbing the mountain together. And so I get this real group sense of camaraderie and overcoming the obstacles. And we're doing this together. And me speaking up right now while Jane's talking sort of is well, we're in this together. And this is an important point to get to, because
Mhm.
me and my skiing practice, I can just imagine after talking to Bruce about the devotion or about the prostrations earlier, some of the things I'm learning, not so much from getting my questions answered, but by sitting with the devotion to us and opening to us. I learned things that for some reason, because someone shared something with me in a certain way, I'm able to drop off the body mind to some degree on the ski hill. And in the rare attempts my ski guide lets me just go skiing for free, I can be in the moment of Zen and kind of choose where I'm going, which is a rare opportunity for me. But I get to push myself harder as an athlete and I get to just go into that. But it's because of the time we spent in this correct devotion and surprising me how things unfold in a certain way. Just
Yeah,
because it's taking me in my practice to places I didn't think it would go. Personally, just with what we're doing. I don't know. I was a little long-winded there, but I feel the passion where Jane's coming from, and I just feel those obstacles being overcome with our group practice, and it's really miraculous what's happening for me. Just
well,
what little it takes for Zazen to break through.
thank
You
you,
know,
Sam. Yeah, I don't know, if there's correct devotion exactly, but it's an interesting thing to think about. But I think, just devotion in general is something that does help you overcome obstacles, helps one to hang in there when times are tough. It's easy to be devoted to something that's new and fun and fresh, and it's really hard to like sometimes see it through tough times, or when you're being challenged or and that kind of thing. So it's I'm glad we're kind of exploring. I've never done this voice before, and I just thought it was interesting to say. Monica, do you have something?
Yeah, I was just thinking when you were talking, is it devotion or is it, and maybe it's one and the same, but is it also developing and committing to habits, forming habits? Um, and I've spent a bunch of time just exploring this idea of what does it mean to develop a habit. And as humans, we in general are lazy, and it takes us a while to develop a habit and to commit something to some sort of path. And it's if you're going to become a runner, it could literally mean you're putting on your shoes for the first 2 weeks and taking them off and that's your beginning, right? And then you maybe go around the block, and then you go 5 minutes, then you go 10 minutes, and but that idea that you commit to something, and maybe it's one and the same, I'm not sure. And it's also really easy to fall out of it, obviously, especially if you're not having fun doing whatever it is that you're committed to doing.
Right.
So I'm just curious what others think about that.
Yeah, Michael.
I might have something to contribute. I sort of made myself a habit expert helping my son, and what I saw was the emotions really set the tone for the habit to form, and that with the emotion, choosing the emotion can spin up the habit within a day, within 2 days. The science that was, I think we may have been told habits take repetition, they take rewards, they take time, they take a lot. That actually isn't the case. And I've gone on to coach like 150 people now online in the last couple of months with this idea, and it's been fascinating to see that a significant number of people will say that, yeah, actually, if you can key in the emotion with when you start that habit up, that new behavior, it'll take and it'll stick. And that's actually relatively, it's a new experience for me. I love this voice, Bruce. I have not sort of met this voice, you know, in the way that you've invited it here. It feels super familiar. I really appreciated Jane's telling of that.
Yeah.
I thought that was very transparent. And I believe this voice is actually relevant to Monica's question. I mean, I was like, this is a natural, it's to me, it was as natural as like the flower's response to the sun just opens. There wasn't actually like a need there was no resistance, there's no pressure, there's no extra steps. It just felt like, it's just almost like all I needed was the focus. Like all I needed was to turn to something. And then this devotion could send me in that direction. And I wonder if that's not somehow relevant to Monica's question about, pulling ourselves into that next possibility. So that's my thought.
Yeah, good. I like it. I think it also, has brother and sister voices like loyalty and faithfulness and, or fidelity. And, these kind of things, these virtues really that can help us get through life and help us in our practice. And then our practice helps back and, back and forth. And yeah, I think it's a nice discussion. You don't have to be devoted to something in particular or to a person in particular. People are devoted to causes maybe, or they're just devoted to them, I don't know what, but just that feeling of devotion, that it's a strong feeling, I think. It's like it pulls at you, and it lets you know when you're not, when you're not on track in a way. I think it's a very good, strong voice. Hi, Willie. How are you?
I'm quite well, thank you. I probably shouldn't be, I should be listening instead of talking because I'm new to this, but I'm finding the whole thing quite interesting. But on the subject of devotion, I spent most of my adult life not very devoted to anything, including myself.
Mm-hmm.
And as an old man, I've become quite devoted to my family and friends, and more than that, to what I do, even frivolous things.
Mm-hmm.
And I found a lot of unexpected joy in being devoted. And I'm devoted to this program. It'll be very interesting to learn more. Thank you.
Thank you, Willie, and I appreciate that. Appreciate that a lot. I think, as I've gotten older, of course, my priorities change around my devotions, quite a bit different than when I was 20. But that's part of it. I think, yeah, Monica and then Paul.
Yeah, I just had a thought.
Yeah.
I was going back to something I did as a kid. I used to practice ping pong from the age 9 to 14, pretty much every day for 3 hours.
Wow.
And there was something that obviously was really important to me, and something that was driven by competition and the idea of winning and sportsmanship and coaching and all the different things that come with practicing a sport.
Yeah.
And then at 14 something happened that made me hate it. It's a long story, but I couldn't participate in something because it was doubles. Doubles means you're playing with somebody. The person I was supposed to play with
Yeah.
got sick, and I couldn't attend. And it was also a moment when I was going from one school to high school, and my priorities quickly shifted. But there was like a very clear rejection of something that I was so devoted to for such for as a kid for 5 years every day, to the point where you're doing multiple camps, during the summer, your muscles are like completely in pain, all these different things that are happening as somebody who's practicing so hard. And to this day, I remember that moment where I made a decision like, I'm not doing it. It just completely felt like it failed me. Looking back, it was fine. Nothing happened. It was probably the right time to quit. My priorities changed. I left the country. I moved on. Lots of different things happened. I'm not a ping pong player. I still love playing. I will still win with any random stranger, when I get a chance to play. And I'm very competitive, and I've learned lots of insane skills because of that 5 year stint of being an athlete and
Yeah.
the skills that it taught me. But it's interesting. I guess what I was trying to say is there comes a moment where you're tested in your, let's say that was my devotion, and
Yes.
you could say I failed that test because I didn't keep going. And I was recently experiencing something similar with something else that I've been devoted to for the past 2.5 years, and really having a hard time finding in me to keep going. And I guess that would be the next logical step, maybe, to talk about how do you keep going when you face these moments of.
Yeah. Monica, you have just presented all of us with a classic, what they call life koan. Okay. It's where there's almost no choice to make, and yet you have to make a choice. And your devotion is so strong, and your expectations around that devotion are very strong. And something happens, and it just there you are. So you look back and go, well, was it a failure or was it not a failure? How do you answer that question? It's so complicated. And then when you're challenged, in anything that you're devoted to, when you're challenged, it's like, I mean, somebody mentioned blind devotion, I mean, do you follow Hitler, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's got to be, this is the koan. How far do I take my devotion? Is my devotion well placed? is my devotion somehow tied up with my ego and my expectations about some kind of reward or payoff? Okay, these are the complications that arise, in this world of samsara that we live in, the dualistic world that's just filled with this kind of koan. And it's, going back to the donkey looking down at the well, what is the donkey thinking? Here we're all donkeys looking down the well going, oh my God, is that my life? What's down there? Where am I going down here? What do I do? And yet if I pull out, then what am I? Am I dead then? Do I quit or do I go in? This is our constant life koan. And this is the root, this is like the heart of Zen practice, in my mind. How do we make our way through these koans of life?
Yeah. Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you, Monica. Paul?
How's that? Something she said made me think of this. As devotion, as I look at Paul in his life, I've noticed that he's had some conditions that had to be met before he could surrender to me. And one of those was that he could recognize what was offered to him as something kindred, something familial, something he could love, or something he did love, even against his better judgment, we'll say, so that he was liberated and set free. He was able to drop the strictures of pretense, of judgment, of self-protection, all of that, to be vulnerable enough to really surrender to something that was feeding him, whatever that thing was, whoever that was, or however that worked. And it was an ongoing thing, and commitment was sort of a moot point. That just exists in his devotion. But the main thing that I have to offer him in that is liberation, release, and the freedom to run like a horse that's been given its head, and to offer whatever it is he has to offer, and get to find out what that is as he goes, however he stumbles along. But that freedom, and I think he's been surprised every single time that that's occurred. Whenever he's been directed to have devotion, that never did quite work, But when that little window opens and he can see something kindred, I guess, something right. It's just
It has
right.
to come from the heart, right?
Yeah, and his heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Paul. Kathy at the very beginning, posed kind of the same question. What do I do when this heaviness comes? This is my life koan. And like I said then, I'll say now, you have to go right into it. And then, but at the same time, you have to think, wait, the master said, the well sees the donkey too. What does that mean? What does that mean when you're thinking about these types of life koans for yourself? You're looking down the well, but the well sees you too. I'm going to leave you with that for tonight. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Brutus.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Bruce. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you,
appreciate
Bruce.
y'all.
Good night, everybody.